What's up, guys? So we're going to do something a little bit different today. Usually I've got you out walking the lot. I'm showing you some cars, but you know what? It's cold, it's rainy, and it's windy today. So we're going to come inside today and talk to you a little about. So a few days ago, I did a video about new car dealers sending higher-end cars to auctions and trying to dump them because they can't sell them on their lot. And I've gotten a whole lot of questions about why these new car stores are doing that instead of just lowering the prices and trying to sell them to consumers. So I wanted to talk about a little bit about the reasons why a new car store would send a car to auction and try to dump it off to small guys like us, used car dealers, instead of actually trying to sell them to the public. And before we get started, before I start explaining this stuff to you, I just want to ask you, please, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, subscribe. I do market updates like this all the time. I take you on walk-arounds through the auctions, show you kind of what used car dealers deal with, what we do to buy used cars. I talk about when's the best time to buy a used car throughout the year. I know it's a crazy time right now. Used car prices are still elevated. They're starting to come down. Wholesale prices are starting to come down. We got tax time coming up, so there's a lot of things moving around the market right now. So subscribe, and I'll keep you updated on just the market in general. All right, so the first thing that I wanted to talk about is to give you an example to run through the process of why a new car dealer might actually send one of their new cars to auction, because we're starting to see a lot of them pop up. And I'm going to use a real life example of a car that's actually trying to be sold just down the street from us. There's a Ford dealer, and I want to give you the number of, see if you can see that. That's from their website right now. They are trying to sell this Bronco for $57,000, and they've actually got the MSRP for $49,700. So they have the MSRP listed on their website, and then right above it, they tell you what you can pay for above MSRP for this vehicle. Ridiculous. That's a whole nother video, but anyway, that's the way a lot of the new car dealers are doing right now. They have an MSRP of what they are suggested to actually sell it for, but what they're selling it for in this case is $7,000 more than what the suggested price even should be. So we've got this Bronco, and it's for sale for $57,000. And my handwriting's terrible, and I apologize. So they're trying to get $57,000 out of this Bronco, and it is sitting on their lot. Obviously, interest rates are really high right now. Car payments are really high, especially for something for $57,000 is going to be astronomical. So these Broncos have been on back order for months, and they finally get one a few months ago, and they have to list it for this because they have to pay higher than what they normally pay for a new vehicle to be able to even get the car on their lot. So they're listing it for this way over MSRP, and they find out no one wants to buy it. No one can afford it for this price. So what ends up happening is they are going to keep it for 30 days. They're going to keep it for 60 days. They're going to keep it for 90 days. So every month that this car is on their lot, they actually have additional fees that rack up on this car. So they're racking up. They'll have a detail fee because weather happens. So every 2 weeks, they're going to have to redetail the outside of that car. That costs money. They're going to have interest payments on top of that because they don't pay cash for these cars. They actually finance their whole lot, and they're end up paying finance charges for any car that they keep over 30 days, over 60 days, and they're going to have payments that come up on these cars every time. And on top of that, they're just going to have general overhead. So anytime they're not moving their cars, they have to put gas in them. When test drives come out, they have to pay their employees. So cars that aren't moving cost more money. So the next issue that these dealers are running into is as manufacturers are able to push out more vehicles, and these car dealers are not selling cars, they're actually increasing the amount of inventory that they have on their lot. So they had this one Bronco because that's the only one they could get. They're trying to sell for $57,000. So now that the manufacturer is actually pushing out more Broncos, they get 3 more. But they're not selling this one right here for $57,000 because nobody can afford it. So they have a couple options they can do. They can lower this price to, let's say, $52,000, but they just got these new Broncos. They're not having any interest payments come up on them, and they want to hit home runs on everything that they get. So they are starting these out at $57K, and all of these are $57,000. So if they lower this one for $52,000, and these are all new cars, so they're basically the same thing. They're going to have different colors. They maybe have a different option or two, but this car is competing with these other three. And they would obviously rather sell these three for $57,000 than sell this one for $52,000 because they're going to make more money on this one. So this car is in competition with these three cars. So the other option they can do is just as they get these new cars in, they can go ahead and just start them out at $52,000. But they don't want to do that. Like I said, they want to hit home runs. They got to make money to cover their overhead. They got to make massive amounts of profits to be able to show if they have any investors, anything like that. But a lot of times they just want to make a lot of money. So they're not going to lower these new cars to this price to be able to sell them quickly. So what they end up doing is they got to get rid of this car. It's not selling, so they got to get it off their lot. It's costing them more money. So now their next option is to either take a loss or try to break even on it, but they're not going to do that with a consumer. What they're going to do is they're going to send it to auction. Now, keep in mind, too, that whenever they send the car to auction, they have to pay transport fees. So they are still paying more money on this Bronco. Every time they're transported somewhere, they've either got to pay somebody to drive it or they've got to pay a transporter to come pick it up on a trailer. So now they get this brand new Bronco to auction. They transport it there. They spend a little bit more money to get it there. They'll probably clean it up before they send it too. It runs through the auction, and what's happening to all these new cars right now, they are no selling. And basically what a no sell means is that a car runs through the auction. A dealer has a reserve on the auction. In this case, this dealer probably has somewhere around 45 grand in this car. So they're going to put their reserve around that because they just want to get out of the car. Probably a little bit more because they have extra expenses. And this car is only going to bring, what I'm seeing now, is $40,000. So this dealer is not going to sell this Bronco for $40,000 and take a $5,000 loss on it. They want to get rid of it, but not that bad yet. We're not into panic mode yet. We might not be far from that because as these dealers are getting more cars, more and more inventory coming in, they've got to make room. I know they have big lots, but they still have lot constraints. They still have money that they have to get out. So we're probably not too far from having a phase where they're going to have to start dumping some of the stuff because they're continuously getting new inventory in and they've got to roll it. So now when this dealer no sells this car at auction, guess what? They have another fee that they have to pay to actually run the car through the auction if they don't sell it. Now, some dealers are really big. They send lots of cars. They'll send 30, 40 cars a week to some of these auctions. They're not going to be paying any of these fees. But if it's a new car dealer that, say, only has 100 cars on their lot, and they typically get trade-ins of maybe 6 to 10 cars a week, and they're running those cars through auction, they're probably still going to have to pay this fee for a no-sale because they're not big enough at that auction where that auction needs their business. So they're really not scratching each other's back. And they're probably sending their cars to a few other auctions anyway because a lot of times, a lot of these new car dealers will send to multiple auctions to see which ones do better for them. There's some auctions that trucks do better at. There's some auctions that Toyotas do better at. There's some auctions that four-wheel drive stuff does better at. So a lot of these new car dealers will actually send their vehicles to multiple auctions, meaning that they're going to give these auctions a little bit less of their business. So the auctions are a little bit less, do a little bit less favors for them as far as cutting fees. So now this Bronco's ran through auction. They try to get this for it. They don't. It brings this, so they no sell it. They might have a fee after they no sell it. So at this point, what happens? That car is still sitting at the auction lot. It's still owned by this new car dealer. Nobody else has bought it yet. So now their options are either they can run it again, which is what we're seeing in that video that I just did that I was referencing earlier. I showed you a Corvette that was there a month ago. So there's been 5 different auctions because they run every week since that Corvette ran the first time that I saw it, and it's still there. So that's 5 different weeks that car's ran through lane. It's got bids on it, and they haven't sold it. So now this dealer right here has 2 options. They can either send it back to their lot and try to lower the price, or try to sell it for the same price that they're going to, which they know they're not going to do. But they can send it back to their lot, lower the price, which also costs money because they got to transport it once again. or they can just run it again at this auction. And at that point, the used car market's not getting any better. The new car market's not getting any better. And it's not going to for the whole of next year. So this car that they want $45,000 for, if I only brought $40,000 last week, it's not bringing any more than this week. There's a saying in the auction world, it's called first money, best money. And that means the first time that you bring a car there, you're going to have the most interest on the car, because us dealers, we pay attention to the cars that are there. So if someone is there and they see this car and it brings $40,000 and they see that it's no sold, the next week you're going to lose bidders on that car, because the dealers that wouldn't pay more than $40,000 for this car, there's no point in them even bidding on it, because if they know that they want to pay $38,000 for it, but this dealer won't even take $40,000 for it, there's no point in even looking at it. Let's go to a different lane. Let's use our time to check out other cars. We're not even going to waste our time. So you're losing bidders on this car. So this car will never bring this same amount ever again. So if these dealers are unwilling to take less than this amount for this vehicle at this auction, and they are unwilling to take it back to their lot, then what's going to end up happening is it's going to sit there. It's going to cost them more money until eventually there's a point where they're just going to have to take basically whatever it brings. And as the used car market, as the new car market gets worse, this number that it brings is going to end up turning into $35,000. And that's going to happen probably 2 weeks from now. And if they still remain stubborn, then that's going to be the highest point from then on. And it's probably going to wind up where it lands somewhere around 33,000. I'm sorry, I'm doing this terribly. 33,000, somewhere around that ballpark that they're going to end up getting for the car, and they're going to eventually dump it because they just need to have it off their books. And instead of losing $5,000, then they're going to end up losing somewhere around $10,000 to $12,000 on this vehicle, because they're not willing to dump it at a reasonable price right now. And the problem is that no one really knows what these prices should be right now. There's Kelley Blue Book, there's the Black Book, all these books that dealers use and consumers use, but really honestly no one knows what the value of a vehicle is right now, because interest rates have gone up, car payments are at the highest level, the economy's going down, we don't know what consumers can afford right now, and the demand is so low that there's really not a place that you can find to gauge what the price of a vehicle is. So the last thing that I want to talk about is we know what happens when these car dealers aren't selling these cars. When they send them to auction, they no-sell them. They keep no-selling, they keep no-selling. Eventually, they're going to have to drop them to where they can dump them to another dealer. But why is it that just a few months ago they were able to sell all these new cars for whatever prices they want to, and now they can't? We all know about interest rates. They're through the roof. We all know about car payments. They're too high. We all know about prices. They're way too high. But another big factor in why they can't sell these cars anymore is because banks. So a year ago, prices were crazy. We all know this. And banks, what they were doing is they were actually loaning 140% on the value of a vehicle to make these deals continuously happen. They felt okay with this because the economy was still strong, because the interest rates were still very low. They're not doing this anymore. But I just want to give you an example of what happened to, especially like the used car market, when these banks were loaning this much. So say you have a car that's worth $10,000. We want to do it just for easy math. This car is worth $10,000. So what this bank is saying that this car would actually be able, the loan value on it would now be $14,000. So what used car dealers were doing is they were saying, okay, well, I'm going to sell this car for $16,000. So that means the consumer only had to come up with a $2,000 down payment, and then they could get the bank to loan $14,000 on this vehicle that's only worth $10,000. So as much as used car dealers were the problem, as much as manufacturers were the problem, as much as supply chains were the problem, banks were also a major problem to this used car market bubble, because they were allowing these bad practices to happen to make sure deals still got done. So erase this. Now guess what's happening? So the banks, they're no longer doing that. They know that we're going into a recession. They know that money's getting tighter, interest rates are up. So they're no longer willing to loan 140% value on these vehicles, but the vehicle prices are still way up. So what ends up happening is they're going back to the more traditional, the more safe way of doing things, where they're only loaning 80% on these values of these cars. So let's take the example again. There's a car that's worth $10,000. This dealer, because they have to pay so much for it at auction right now, is still trying to get that $16,000 for that vehicle. So in the case of this example, the bank only wants to loan $8,000 on the car. So what does that mean? That means the consumer has to come up with the difference. So the consumer also has to put up $8,000, and nobody can do that. So that's the reason why these used car dealers, these higher end used car dealers, are not selling anything. That's why a lot of these new car dealers aren't selling anything, because they still have to get a lot of times these added amounts, because what we're paying at auction, we're paying more than what the value of the car is. So on this $10,000 car, they probably had to pay $12,000 on it at auction. If they have to pay $12,000 for it at auction, they can't sell for 10 grand. They got to sell for $16,000. So if the bank will only loan $8,000, that consumer that has to come up with the other $8,000, they're not going to do it. The payments are already too high. They're not going to pay what they think is actually ridiculous for the car. It was different back a year ago when interest rates were low. They could keep their monthly payments low. Didn't matter what the car cost. I know what I'm going to pay for it a month. But now, when you're getting into car payments that are $500, $600 a month, they're starting to look at these values and they just can't afford it anymore. So I just want to urge everyone who's watching this, especially if you're in the market for a higher end car, please wait. Wait to the end of next year if you can. Keep your cars running right now, the ones that you have. Don't buy anything new. If you have a need for a used car or something cheaper, I just did a video about that a couple of days ago. You can see kind of the time horizons that you're on. If you need to buy a car soon, then you can go ahead and start poking around, but tax time's coming, and if you can't make it until tax time, then you have to wait till after, because the prices are going to be the highest they're going to be. Now, the new car stuff, the higher end stuff, is not really going to be affected by tax time, but the lower end stuff will. So I hope you guys got some valuable information from this conversation we had today. If you would, please subscribe to the channel. Please like the video. Leave me a comment if you have any questions. I try to get to each and every one of them. I really appreciate the support. Got to 10,000 subscribers just about a week ago, and I've been blown away. Been doing about 3 months now, and I would have never thought that we got to this point this soon. So thank you guys so much. I hope you have a great holiday, and please just have a great rest of your day.